Hello, this is John Cross from the Daily Mirror, and welcome to our Reach now weekly football show. And this week, I'm bringing you, as hostess with the mostest, standing in, Dunn and Dunner. So it's Andy Dunn, chief sports writer from the Daily Mirror, and Matt Dunn from the Daily Express. Now, as luck would have it, actually, just before the show started, we had some breaking news about Eric Dier. And amidst the sort of kind of battle for top four, who's going to go down, summer football, drinks breaks and all that sort of thing, I think the news about Eric Dier getting a fine and a 4-match ban for what happened just before lockdown when he jumped into the crowd to confront a fan will obviously dominate the headlines. So let's get our views, I think, on that. So actually, I'm going to kick off with you, Matt, if I may. What did you make of that? Do you think that's a fair punishment, a punishment that the FA had to dish out? What did you make of it?
He needed to be punished, but they've got the balance all wrong again. And you would hope, admittedly, the events occurred before lockdown, but after the lockdown we've had and everything that's gone on in the world since, you would hope for some more common sense from these lawmakers. I've poured quickly through the written reasons. It seems to boil down to the fact that the spectator doesn't feel he was threatened. The bystanders didn't think he was threatening, but the people who made the judgment boil it down to what a responsible bystander would think of the situation. And apparently, when you can spray all sorts of invective at a footballer, call him all sorts of names under the sun, it's reasonable for him to be threatened when the player comes and demands some sort of answer. I think it's ludicrous. He needed to be punished as soon as he stepped foot above the advertising hoardings. He's out of where he should be, and that's some sort of a ban. It's a 1-match ban, a 2-match ban, perhaps. But what they've said is that if he chased a football player around the pitch like that, that would be deemed threatening and could be a red card. You tell me the last time you saw a player sent off for chasing up to a player and then doing nothing and not coming within several yards of him. I don't remember that example. I don't remember that being a 3-match ban. So to base his punishment on that sort of incident is a complete nonsense. It's there in the books, but that's not how common sense is applied. That's not how football's governed. And at a time when we are stopping showing yellow cards for showing slogans so that we can show very human reactions to things that are clearly wrong, then I think to punish a player for going up to an area where his brother was sat in the stands to ask for an explanation from a spectator who feels it's okay to shout abuse at a fellow human being like that, whatever the circumstances, then I just think it shows a complete lack of sense of what common human decency is these days.
Andy, last week, Jose Mourinho said that he compared it with basically the outstanding Dier case to Matteo Guendouzi getting off for grabbing Neil Maupay round the throat at Brighton. You know, and obviously the officials at the time, and then you can't re-referee it, deemed that wasn't, worthy of a punishment. I mean, do you have similar sympathy to Matt and Jose's argument there?
No, I don't, John. I think to compare the hurtling into the stand is, well, it's incomparable. It's as simple as that. It's on the football pitch. Dier has left the football pitch and gone into the stands. Now that's the bottom line. I'd say first of all, Matt's about the lawmaker's verdict. 2 of that 3-man panel are these aren't guys who are just faceless suits who haven't got a clue what goes on the football pitch. So they've passed down that verdict. And I would recommend people, it is a bit long and it goes on a bit, but they should probably read the actual full written reasons, which are available from the FA. I don't have sympathy for the FA, but I understand why they've come to the 4-match ban situation. It just can't, it is an unusual instance. They don't want... There's no real precedent, really. Eric Dier incident is not a precedent in that it was far more serious and he assaulted a spectator. Situation where they've got not a lot to go on, and they don't want to set a dangerous precedent of of people being able to go into the stands to confront someone who they think has been abusing them or abusing their family. And that, in the end, is why they've had to be quite draconian in their punishments. If he was deemed, he was actually deemed to be threatening by the commission. If he was saying that a 3-match ban was what they would have dished out for a non-threatening incursion into the stands. So 4 matches, while it seems harsh, and I understand where Matt's coming from, and probably the majority of public, after all, let's face it, why should they be subjected to this abuse? But I do understand why the FA have come to this decision.
Yeah, see, I do have some sympathy in that. Basically, I just think that we've got it skewed here. That a member of, a fan can say what they like, do what they like, which I think was illustrated. I don't know whether you remember. I think it was Joe Root, wasn't it? Basically, got some stick from the sidelines as he came off. I mean, being compared to Ed Sheeran, I think, if I remember rightly. I mean, that's not damaging enough. But but it's just, the fan always seems to escape the punishment. And I know we look to the player to be the kind of the role model, to kind of, to act properly. They understand the laws of the game. But surely somewhere in the line, somewhere down the line, we've got to apply some common sense. If you see, your brother being abused or kind of, being got at, surely you react, don't you?
I think you have to try not to, and that is the point that's being made. And I see how Andy says you've got to set a draconian punishment, but actually jumping the advertising hoardings is just a yellow card offence. It's not a 3-match ban. You jump the advertising hoardings to celebrate, that's all you get is a yellow card. And if, like they say, they've based it on a red card for chasing down a player, red card's never been issued. So it's all based, and I know they're footballers with a QC making these decisions, and they've got a blank canvas, so they've got to do it from somewhere. But they've made erroneous judgments of what actually you do genuinely, literally get punished for. And then on top of that, failed to take into account the human side of things, even though they claim to recognise it in the written reasons. I remember David Beckham flicking a V sign at Leeds fans back, it must have been 20 years ago now. But he got no punishment at all because of the absolutely despicable nature of what the Leeds fans were taunting at him. That was the FA working. And yeah, he shouldn't have flicked a V sign, and it did bring the game into disrepute. But to be honest, no human being in that situation would have done any different. And likewise, Eric Dier needs to be told, and he accepted that he behaved improperly. What he said was, I wasn't threatening. And, knowing Eric Dier a little bit from having bumped into him in various quarters, I think he's someone who would demand an explanation. I don't think he's someone who come in and think with his fists first and then ask questions afterwards. I think Gareth Southgate offered him a character reference as part of the hearing. He's an upstanding young man, and I think to expect him to put up with that sort of thing and not behave as a human being and then accept that he's made a mistake, I just think they've got this all wrong about themselves. I think it sends the wrong message.
Andy, I was just going to move on, talking about unsuccessful defences, really. Chelsea seamlessly on. Chelsea last night, really, I mean, a fantastic win for Frank Lampard and his team, obviously, at Crystal Palace. Strengthens their Champions League hopes, doesn't it? And boosts their opportunity to finish in the top 4 when the pressure's on. But what do you think now in the race for top 4? Are Chelsea gonna kind of keep their nerve? Gonna remain in there, because they do look very, very wobbly at the back, didn't they? I mean, they could have easily drawn that game.
Yeah, I don't think he's quite sure of what combination works best at the back. Maybe all across that back line, and of course, you still have to have reservations about the goalkeeper who cost an inordinate amount of money, whose positioning and who's just doesn't seem. For example, if you think what was spent on Ederson and Alisson, slightly less, but still enormous amounts of money, but they seem far more, greater value than Chelsea's goalkeeper does. So that's an issue, I think, but I think he'll stick with him. But even so, even though he can't quite come up with a defensive combination that really convinces, they do seem to be regaining momentum going forward. Pulisic is in great form. I do think they've got goals. Looking at their fixtures, okay, they've got to go to Anfield, haven't they? I think for the penultimate game, that week, which will be which will be a tough test for them because Liverpool will still be going for records. But I think they've got enough just to get over the line. I really do. I don't think it will be plain sailing, but I think they've got enough to make that third spot their own.
Is Kepa a keeper for the long term, or does Frank Lampard need to
be a keeper?
Yeah, is he a keeper?
Is he? Listen, personally, at the moment, there's nothing there ever since the refusal to come off as sub, refused to be subbed off situation. I think even from that point on, the writing must have been, the signs were there. It doesn't look to me long term a great prospect for them. But having said that, when you spend that much money, you're not going to get anywhere like that back for him. So whether you'll persevere or not, I'm not sure. But no, I think Frank will look at that situation probably in the close season. For what
Matt, we were both at the Emirates, and a hell of a game, by the way. I mean, fantastic play at breakneck speed. Was to come out, showed what they're about and their determination to make the top four. But can you see big improvements under Arteta? Is he making strides? I mean, it was only a couple of weeks ago we were saying they're going backwards, but now they appear to be going forwards again, don't they?
But first of all, got to mention Leicester. They're going to be in the top four. They showed that last night, no doubt about it. Let's mention them because they don't perhaps get the coverage that they deserve sometimes. They're top four. Arsenal, I don't think will be. And it's because their defence aren't still strong enough to underpin the great work that I saw last night for the first sort of 75 minutes. I think we've got our answer on how much Arsenal need Mesut Ozil still. They've finally signed someone from Real Madrid who gives them everything that they want, and in terms of desire, ability, eye for a pass. His pass for the goal out to Saka was sublime. And it's just, they look a different team with him ticking in the middle of it. And I think Ozil, whatever he wants to do from now on, can just do it away from Arsenal as far as Arteta is concerned, because they just don't need him. They looked, Saka is a little way off being the finished player for them. And if they can keep Aubameyang and Lacazette next season with the budget, then they've got a strike force that no one would want to argue with. It is all great green shoots, but then you've got a defence. Tierney was a fantastic player last night, but just in terms of getting his body in the way, it's not proper defending. That's backs to the wall defending. The organisation still isn't there. Is one step away from, and the ease with which they finally scored Leicester was just a simple ball across the back line, and nobody picked anyone up. And that's what they're doing again. If Arteta can get that sorted in the summer,
right now. And I guess when you see performances like that, you can sort of forgive it to, if Mesut Ozil is persona non grata, as he would appear to be, rather like on the naughty step with Matteo Guendouzi. Can you carry a player like that in the team, in the squad, in the background, when he's on that amount of money each week, which I guess is irrelevant to Arteta in many ways? But can you actually do that as a manager for 12 months, knowing that your best paid player is simply not in your plans or destructive to the squad?
Well, I don't think it's terminally destructive, but I don't think it sets, I can understand why players would be, a couple of them. And I think they look really, really well organised at Wolves. I can say about modern day Arsenal, but they look really well organised and very efficient. But back to Ozil, what seems a shame, John, is that there's such a fantastic player. If you've got a world-class player at your club, you've got to. It just seems if you're Arsenal, you're thinking, well, hang on a minute, there must be a way of using this guy over a season. Let's forget the rest of this season. I doubt he's going to play there. But you've got a whole season. There must be a way of using this player. How can you have that talent at your club and actually not be able to get anything out of him at all? And if you're the board, you'd be saying, hang on a minute, we've got to be able to get something out of this guy. But how you do it now, I just don't know. It just does seem as though Arteta's fairly entrenched in this, as he is with Guendouzi. And bizarrely, we might not see anything of Ozil on a football pitch for a year.
But Ozil's got to want to do it himself, Andy. That's the problem. How you can try every trick as a manager you want, but Ozil's got to want to say, no, I'm worth this money. I am this good. I'm worthy of Andy Dunn's immense support because I am that player. But he's on his 18th medical timeout. Didn't miss a game through any medical reasons for 3 years at Real Madrid. And you have to start wondering, so how can a player who, whenever he plays, looks so spineless, have so many problems with his back? It's just a farce that he's allowed to... here's a man who, at the start of Emery's tenure, had a virus, and Emery invited him into this dressing room to wish all the players good luck and shake his hands. That's how much he believed that he was contagious. It's just been a mockery of a situation where whatever, you give him trust for a few weeks, he turns it on for a week or two, shows what he can be, and disappears again. And managers must hate that one. We're a big enough club that we pay this guy all this money and can still have him rotting with the stiffs because he doesn't care. Are you going to care? That's what you say to the rest of the players. Because if you try it on, Mesut Ozil's not too big, so neither are you.
No, I agree. Andy, I think me and Matt are both at Brighton, Liverpool tonight. But I just wanted to ask you about what Jurgen Klopp said yesterday in the build-up to this game about kind of, he was praising his youngsters to the skies, wasn't he? Perhaps, really putting his faith in the next generation. When you look at Curtis Jones, when you look at Harvey Elliott, it's easy to see why. I mean, the one that always strikes me is obviously he doesn't get perhaps as many opportunities because of what's in front of him. But, Nico Williams, I think, is absolutely fantastic. He plays regularly at any other Premier League club. But tell me this, I think the inference is obvious, isn't it? Liverpool are not going to be big spenders in the market this summer. I don't think they can afford to be. Do you think that faith in youth is going to be strong enough to carry Liverpool forward? You've always got to be sort of kind of reinvested at the top. And, do you think that is strong enough to take Liverpool forward next season again?
It's a really good topic for debate. I saw when Liverpool went in the Carabao Cup and they sent their young team to now, bear in mind, a couple of the better young players did actually go with the senior team out to the Club World Cup. So it wasn't exactly their best young team. But even so, they were turned over quite heavily by Villa. And I thought at the time, I thought maybe the strength in depth youth-wise, bear in mind they won the Youth Cup in last season, I thought that it might not be as deep as maybe some people thought. And I'm still not convinced that it is as deep. I do think, I totally agree with you that the pick of the crop right now, I was there on Sunday when Curtis Jones scored his first Premier League goal. I like him. I like Elliott. I think Neco Williams, you're absolutely spot on. I think he is a real standout young player for them. What's obviously the situation is that he is. I mean, he's Trent Alexander-Arnold. And when I've seen him play, he reminds me so much of him in the way he plays and his approach to the game. So what's going to happen there? Clearly, over a long season with all the competitions, he's going to get game time. But he's at the stage now, Williams, where he needs to be playing more regularly. So that's a dilemma for Klopp. I don't think that they can just. I think Liverpool will refresh the squad no matter what Klopp says. I think he'll buy one or two. And then we'll have Jones, Elliott and Williams, the three out of the younger players coming in as and when. And that's the situation, I think. I don't think Liverpool's youngsters coming through are, necessarily a completely stellar crop. I do think there's probably two or three that we'll see as regular first-team players. But I think Klopp will buy. I think he will look at that. And I think he will look, for example, at Sunday's game that I was at against Villa. When, okay, listen, there are circumstances, there are mitigating circumstances. They've won the league, and no matter how much you say, well, we're going for records, we're going for points, we're going for goals, there's still a subconscious thing that it's all done. Mm. But he changed it around a bit, and I think when he left Firmino out, and he played Origi up front, and I just think that he'll look at that and think, you know what, I probably just do need to freshen this up a bit. I just probably do need. So I think one or two. I don't know whether Thiago will come off or not. I don't know. But I just think he will fresh up one or two with a blend of one or two youngsters.
Yeah, Matt, if you could sign one player, who would that be? I mean, there is a lot of that talk about Thiago, absolutely fabulous player, isn't he? But who would that player be? Do you think that would come in that could strengthen Liverpool's squad?
No, I think I'm going with the majority because they are such exceptional players. Thiago is a fantastic player who could perhaps bring the best out of the other players that are already strong. And that's what Klopp's been so brilliant at. That's what's turned them into title winners. He's addressed the one area that perhaps needs addressing with his goalkeeper, his centre-back. They were the key signings. He put them in and suddenly the whole team becomes stronger. And Thiago's another one of those. And I can see why so many people are thinking that could be the next piece of the jigsaw.
Just touching on Man City briefly, it was interesting to see Guardiola talking about John Stones. I can't help but feel, but reading between the lines, that it's kind of decision time this summer, and that John Stones might be on his way. I think it would be fair to say. Do we expect, guys, a big summer from City, a big rebuilding plan, bearing in mind everything swirling around in the background, kind of the potential ban, everything going on? Does City really go again for it?
Well, we get is it July the 13th? So is it on Monday we're expecting the verdict from CAS? That will obviously dictate a lot of what happens. If it gets overturned completely, then I think they'll reinvest. If it gets reduced, then I think they probably won't reinvest as much. If the 2 years stays, then all bets are off. I mean, really. Going back to John Stones, defensively, you have to think he's going to invest defensively. John Stones is an interesting one. 2 years ago, Pep Guardiola said as long as he's at the club, John Stones will be at the club. And if you remember, John Stones was a particular project of his. And he's always said that John Stones is a world-class defender. He's always said that he would improve him, and he hasn't done that. Now, there may be other reasons, why Stones hasn't progressed as people thought. But I think, a lot of it's got to be at Guardiola's door. He hasn't improved John. Everyone always says Pep improves players. That is a mantra. We always say, this is how Guardiola improves players. Raheem Sterling being maybe the prime example. But he hasn't improved John Stones. He hasn't improved him. And if anything, I think because of the way they play, when he does play, he's exposed. Central defenders for City, defenders per se, are exposed at Manchester City because of the way they play. I remember a couple of seasons ago, I think it was in Leicester's title-winning season, they went to Leicester City. I was covering the game. And he essentially played three at the back. I think it was Kolarov, Zabaleta and Stones. Kolarov and Zabaleta were bombing on. He essentially played 1-9. That was his formation, 1-9. Leicester attacked 4 times, and they scored 4 times. And John Stones was exposed. Now, how many times have we seen him exposed? And then his confidence goes. He's obviously a confident player. So I think Pep has to take that one on the rap sheet. But I think they will have to look at defenders. There's no way. I mean, Manchester City lose 9 games in the season. 9 games. And the season's not over yet. And people say, well, why is this? Well, there's a simple reason. It's because they can't defend. They're not asked to defend very often. When they are asked to defend, they can't defend. I mean, let's face it, he hasn't really got a left back, has he?
No, he hasn't. Matt, I just wonder, theoretically, hypothetically, if they get banned on next week, can City strengthen? Can City strengthen? Do you think? Can City strengthen? Do you think, even if they get banned and come back and be a force again next season?
I think they'd end up perhaps signing players who are coming for the wrong reasons. That's the part of the problem they face. They're going to have to persuade people to come, not play Champions League football. And they could end up with players that perhaps aren't the right mentality, that when they are back challenging with the elite, that they're the ones to do it. I'd be very wary about investing at that sort of time. You don't need a stronger squad to play Europa League. You can do it with a smaller number of players. And if there is that odd quality player and perhaps another project, that's the time to sign another project player, but get it right this time. Sign someone who in 2 years' time is going to be the world's best defender. So be spending that sort of money, because if you start making marquee signings to players who are happy to come and play Europa League, not even Europa League, I don't want to talk about that, but just domestic football, then you wonder why they're there, to be honest.
Yeah, sure. I was just going to touch on one of the outstanding games at the back end of this week, on Thursday night. Man United's trip to Aston Villa, which is obviously a fantastic game for both ends of the table. Are Man United going to finish top four? Are Aston Villa doomed? What do we think, guys?
Well, Matt done there. Dunny's just said that Leicester will finish top four, and I've said Chelsea will finish top four. So I guess Man United. I think they will finish top four because I think, if my memory serves me right, they do have to play Leicester, Man U. That's still to come, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
Top of my head.
Yeah.
I may be pretty wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's still to come.
Final game, isn't it?
I think it is the final game. I think you're right at Leicester. And Man U are in such a rich vein of form. I'm not sure they'll slip up before then. I mean, I honestly think Thursday, you're right, it's an awful lot on that game Thursday, but having seen Aston Villa at Anfield on Sunday, I can see no way that they can get anything out of that game. And I've seen Villa a couple of times since the restart. I saw them get beaten at home by Wolves. And obviously I saw them get beaten at Anfield on Sunday. Now, you may say there's no disgrace of getting beaten at Anfield. Obviously not, because the last, goodness knows how many, 20-odd teams to go there have been beaten. They've won so many on the spin, 20-odd on the spin. So that's, there's no disgrace. But Liverpool were there for the taking. That's the worst I've seen Liverpool play for a long time. And Villa had half chances to go into the lead. El Ghazi allowed Alisson to make a save that he probably shouldn't have allowed him to make. And they are just bereft of confidence. You've got a team who can't score and will always concede. And, you don't have to be any sort of football expert to know what that adds up to. It adds up to an awful lot of defeats. And that's the shape of form they're in. I can't see them scoring more than one goal a game. It's hard to see them actually scoring, never mind scoring more than one. And I think if you're going to beat Manchester United now, in the form they're in, with the amount of goals they're scoring, with the attack and potency they've got, you've probably got to aim to score more than one. And I just can't see it happen for Villa. And I think the bottom three will essentially be as the bottom three will finish.
Matt, see it the same way?
Similar. I'm going to wriggle off that hook that Andy set for me by saying I think United will be in the Champions League next year, but in fifth place, because I don't see it changing. So I'm going to stick with the top.
There's a fence there that you're sitting on.
But I'm still in the Champions League. But it's... One thing I would say is it's a great opportunity for Jack Grealish, isn't it, if he wants to play for United. The only question is, I'm not sure...
Is he Man United class, Matt? Is he?
I don't think so. I don't think he's a good enough... He might think he is, but I don't think he's a good enough player to lift that Villa side enough to make enough of a statement to say that he is that good. I'm not sure his mentality is quite right. There's so many off-the-field things that you worry about. I'm not sure that he does add that much to the United squad at the moment. I'm with Andy, though, in terms of the bottom three. I think it's going to be what it is, despite West Ham's every attempt to try and shoot themselves in the foot. I think the current bottom three are going to be the bottom three. And I can't see anything other than United winning on that game, which I'm looking forward to, because I've not been to Villa Park for a while.
You'll
enjoy it. Yeah, you'll enjoy it. It's a good experience. I must say, credit to all the games, all the grounds. Yeah. Every experience for me covering behind closed doors football has been well. Everyone does it slightly different, whether it's handing the forms in, whether it's doing the temperature check or doing it. Everyone's got their own slightly different way of doing things, which can be a little bit confusing at times. But I guess they want to be understandably get it absolutely spot on. And in that. Kind of theme of discussion generally. I was just going to ask you as a final point, really, about we're in a very strange situation at the moment. But what do we think that, IFAB are talking about keeping the 5 substitutes today? They're debating that. But I guess also it's a broader point, perhaps. It seems surreal. It feels to me like it's April because we've missed 2 or 3 months. Yeah. Let's be honest. Time, the time machine has gone horribly wrong and kind of transported us into July, and we're watching Premier League football. Are we enjoying it? Are we enjoying this bizarre experience of kind of summer domestic football in July? What do we think?
Yes. Well, I mean, I'd rather it never have happened. Obviously, like the rest of the world's population, but. Yes, I think, and as you well know, I was probably one of the few who were initially quite against it restarting. And now I'm absolutely convinced they made the right decision. And I am enjoying it. I think the games have picked up a little bit in their intensity. And obviously, there's going to be some games that there's not an awful lot on. But that's always been the same with crowds or not. There's always been some games that have what we always call an end-of-season feel to them when there's no jeopardy involved. We'll get that. So, yeah, I'm enjoying it. And I think the games are picking up. What I would say is that what you just started off, what you referred to then, is the 5 sub rule. For the life of me, I cannot understand why the so-called smaller clubs ever agreed to adopt it. When you say IFAB are discussing extending it, of course, we don't have to. The Premier League didn't have to adopt IFAB. No. IFAB basically said, you can have 5 subs if you want them. How? And I think it was, you told me this, John. I think it was it 4 clubs voted against it? And that was
16-4. 16-4. And I tell you what really interested me, Danny, was that basically in the early part of the discussions, Chelsea were one of the opponents of it.
Yeah.
Because obviously they felt that maybe their squad wasn't as deep and as strong as. Don't get me wrong. I think in the end they did indeed vote for it. But basically they voiced concerns at a meeting. Basically why? Because some of the clubs are clearly going to benefit from it, aren't they?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So I think the 5 sub that cannot be adopted long term. It is just ridiculous. As I say, I mean, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in a matter of seconds put all 5 on. And then Burnley didn't make 5 subs in their first, I think, 3 or 4 games. They didn't make a total of 5 subs. Solskjaer became the first man to stick all 5 on. And we obviously know what City could do tonight if they want. They can put on 5 players who can change the game, although obviously it didn't happen at Southampton. But so I think that's got to go back to 3. And the drinks breaks, well, and it is just surely why ever did we not have a situation where you just have drinks break? You're just guided by whether or not you think you need a drinks break. So you go to a game and the forecast is for 30 degrees at X amount of time. We'll have a drinks break. I was at Anfield on Sunday, and they had 2. It was freezing cold. I can promise you, it was absolutely. Well, I would say. I wouldn't say perishing, but it was cold. And when they had the drinks break, Bovril would have been better. Never mind. And then what happens then is Klopp actually said, well, I really like this break because it gives me a chance to talk to the players. And obviously we've seen that more and more to the extent where the Brentford manager, Thomas Frank, I think he got the tactics board out last night, didn't he, in the drinks break?
Yeah.
I mean, so this is just now... It's just basically you are separating the game into 4 quarters, which is going way back. Matt will probably be able to help me. I think that was Sepp Blatter's idea of some World Cup.
Yeah.
And we derided him for it, saying, what are we going to turn into? American football, 4 quarters, 5 subs coming on. So you've almost got a special team coming on. So I understand why. I sort of understand why they've been brought in for this situation. I still don't think they should have, but I understand. But they cannot, neither the drinks break or the subs extension, be carried on when we get back to normal.
Yeah, Matt, agree with that?
Yeah, I do agree with Andy on that. What worries me though is that a lot of people within football will want them to continue. Mourinho makes no bones about it. They're not drinks breaks; they're tactics breaks. He says. Yeah. And it's right. Managers want to have a chance to talk to their players, but they shouldn't be allowed to. The game stops enough now with VAR. If people are thirsty, have a drink when the VAR decisions are taking place. They seem to run up enough time. You've got to keep the flow going. There's a commercial pressure to have ad breaks, set ad breaks that they know are going to come. But no, we need to stop that. Football's supposed to be a flowing sport, and it's getting eaten away and now too much stop-start. And with the 5 substitutes, why... When you look down the pyramids, if you're allowed 5 substitutes, are we really asking cash-strapped clubs lower down the leagues to pay wages, match-day wages for, at the moment 20 players, a bench of 9 players or 16 that get on, when it's hard enough to get, 11 players paid? I just think it goes against the whole thing. There's no reason for there to be 5 changes. You pick your team, that's your team. And if you need to make a few changes for injury, well, let's make allowances for that. You can't have Pep Guardiola trying to get a result with a B team and then saying, oh, that's not working, we'll send on 5 replacements and change the whole thing up. It's not what football is about. It's not a squad game. It's about 11 versus 11. And if those have to change occasionally, great, but let's not invite that sort of wholesale change.
Yeah. Is there anything, as just as a final thought, is there anything that either of you would take out of this brave new world, this new normal, as we keep on calling it, and apply that you think, wow, that's a good idea, and apply to football in the longer term, anything at all?
Yeah, there's one thing I don't know how you do it, but you take a video of all the knocks and the injuries that players have got up from with no fans in the ground, and remind them of, play a video of that and say, do you know what, when you got caught by that tackle when there weren't any fans around, you managed to get up again. We didn't have to wait for 3 minutes for a trainer to come on. So it's a lot more honest, the game, at this level. And I don't know how you tap into that, but the players need to be reminded they can, in the modern day, play a competitive game of football without all the silliness, all the time wasting that tends to go on when it's more of a spectacle.
And
on that point again, I don't know how you do it, but have you noticed that there doesn't appear to be a great amount of chat back to the referee or dissent?
Yeah, it's a very good shout.
We'd hear it. We're in the stadium and it's all quiet. We don't get the false crowd noise, whatever, so you can hear it. And I'm astonished, and I think there has been, certainly in the Bundesliga, sort of research done that these games are so less stressful for referees, they're saying, because basically you haven't got the crowd. So if you haven't got 40,000 people expressing their outrage at the referee, the players tend not to join in. And every game I've been at, I've been astonished by basically how little dissent there is towards a referee. Now, there's far more, say, if you go down to your local Sunday League pitch, you'll see far more dissent towards a referee than you see amongst these guys. So I would like, that to carry on. And just quickly going back, we talk about the subs. You know what I mean? When my dad was watching Liverpool in the 60s, 65, 66, I think, they used 14 players all season to win the league. 14 players all season, and teams are now using 16 in one game. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, just going back, I just think players are basically, mainly because they're not psyched up by a really sort of buzzing crowd. And obviously we miss all that desperately, but the players are, chat back to referee, to me, seems to be at an absolute minimum at the moment.
Yeah, no.
But on that, to pick up on one practical change, I'm enjoying listening to the referee shout back to the players when you're close enough to the pitch at those grounds that you are. So I think there should be looked again about miking referees up to realise what they do to control the game and have a better understanding of their job, because it's fascinating sometimes to hear what they're telling players, etc., which I think can be informative to fans when they're back shouting and calling them all sorts of names.
Do you know what surprised me on that, Matt? It's amazing how the referees are calling players by their first names. I don't know quite what I expected, but basically they are very much calling the players by their first names, and I've even heard some players calling the referee by the first name. I mean, it's a fascinating insight, and the insight that I've enjoyed most from behind closed doors, I have to say, was at Southampton on Sunday. Southampton, Man City. Ralph Hasenhüttl, who's clearly done a terrific job at St Mary's this season. And I just didn't realise until I sat fairly close to him behind the dugout, basically, that how vocal he was and how encouraging he was. And I just thought, wow, if I was a player playing there, I'd love to play for that manager who basically encourages the players, tells them what to do. He almost talked Shea Adams through the whole game. It was fascinating to watch, and he thought it was a brilliant thing.
Just on that, John, and I'm at the Etihad tonight for the 6 o'clock game, City Newcastle. And as you know, we sit there quite close to the dugouts. Obviously, it's quiet. You can hear Pep, and you're quite right. It's a fascinating insight. I think people will be, I don't know whether sort of comforted to know that actually it's not that complicated. So you think Pep Guardiola, probably the world's most celebrated coach possibly, and you think it's going to be complicated, you think it's going to be complex, you're going to get a fascinating insight into what he does and see all the movements. And then I'm at the first game against Arsenal, and the thing he said most was, get it wide, lads, get it wide. This is Pep Guardiola, like, knock it wide, boys. And I'm thinking, well, you know what? It's just a reminder, really, that it's the same game that me and you and everyone else plays, albeit they play it to a far better level. But it is a simple game. And I just think that insight into the coaches is that for all the gesticulations, for all the iPads and whatever, a lot of the stuff they're shouting is stuff that you'd be very familiar with.
Yeah, my personal favourite, second ball, lads. Win the second ball. I mean, you hear hearing it every week. But there you go. But guys, thanks so much for joining, and really appreciate it. Done and done. And hope everyone's enjoyed the show. And we, fantastic week of football ahead, and nice couple of days. And look back upon the weekend. Please join us again next week.